Hey ladies, how are you? This is international makeup artist Lori Hogg, and I wanted to share with you today how to do some tattoo cover-ups using your Mary Kay products. First, I would like to welcome you to my bathroom. So here we go. It's late at night, and I just thought this would be fun. So let's get right into it. We're going to need about 6 very important products from the Mary Kay line. Starting off with the Mary Kay primer, number 3 highlighting pen, cream to powder foundation, definitely a must-have the finishing spray, translucent powder, and maybe a mineral powder foundation at the end, depending on what we don't want to do with the color. So here we go. This is how we start. When we're wanting to cover up tattoos, ladies, we want to talk to people about being realistic. Understand that once you have a tattoo, that skin is no longer fresh, untampered with skin. It is scarred skin. So even though we can cover up the color, we can't cover up the texture of the tattoo. So say the young lady has a very bumpy surface underneath. What we're going to need to do is add a ton of primer before we start adding on to the color. That'll help soften out the scarring, so when the color is applied, it's not as noticeable with her walking down the aisle. Here's another quick pointer. When you start a tattoo, the first thing the artist does is he shaves the area he'll be working in. So if you're doing a movie, commercial, anything like that, I don't suggest this step, but if you're doing a bride and say she's got a tattoo on her back, on her shoulder, on the top of her arm, on her chest, totally fine to go ahead and hand her a Bic-it and tell her to just quickly, gently, just clean off the area and get any hair away from that tattoo. That way the makeup doesn't stick to the hair, causing it to be more noticeable than it needs to be. Again, not exactly for a movie, special effects, anything of that nature, okay? This is strictly for bridal and kind of day-to-day, if you will. We're going to make a note, too. If you're going to get a tattoo, make sure you don't want to cover it up later on, okay? If it's something you want to cover up, you may think about wanting to get something else, okay? Because these things are not easy to cover. Just like they're not easy to get, they're just as hard to cover. So here we go. First step, primer. I'm going to start with just a pearl size. Now you want to make sure that you and the bride or whomever you're doing the tattoo cover up with, you all have a discussion. You need to see the size of the tattoo, because size depends on how much time you need to get this done and how much product it's going to take. So now I've got my primer in, got it in really nice. I'm going to give it just a few seconds to absorb, and I'm going to go ahead, pull out my number 3 highlighter pen. Why use the number 3 highlighter pen and not concealer? Okay, the number 3 highlighter pen has a very strong tint of peach and orange. And that's exactly what we need to counteract any black, blue, green, any color at all. We can counteract that with the number 3 highlighter pen. If we just use concealer, most concealers can have a little bit of a yellow tint to it, so the color will still be seen, and we'll end up getting a really cakey spot that looks very made up, and we'll need more makeup to cover. Does that make sense? So less makeup to cover when you use a number 3. If you use concealer, you're gonna need a whole bottle. Moving forward, we should be nice and ready to go with the primer. I'm gonna apply a little bit of the number 3. Now my tattoos have a lot of color in them, so this will be very easy for me to cover up. A young lady that has black and gray, you're gonna need to maybe add a few layers of the number 3 highlighter pen. So what I'm going to do, I want to make sure to cover anything that has color right now. And I'm going to begin to stipple and stipple. Now understand, we've got to keep our clients realistic. Just like it didn't take 10 minutes for her to get the tattoo, it's not going to take 10 minutes to cover it up. We need some time to do this. And we're doing it in these particular steps to help the color from transferring. Now that I have 1 layer of number 3 highlighter pen, I'm going to go back over top with a little bit of translucent powder, and I'm not going to blend. I am not blending. If I start doing strokes with this brush, I'm going to move that product and that color is going to pop right up. So I'm so gently just going to dab it on just to make sure everything's super duper soft. We'll just say, let's go ahead. We'll throw on another, just a gentle coat, a light coat of the number 3. You get right back in there. And again, I'm going to concentrate it on the colors of my arm that have the most color in it. So I'm going to pat, pat, pat and get this on as much as I can. I'm going to return to stippling with my finger, going back and forth, covering right on top. So now that we're done again, we're going to go back with the translucent powder. Tap, tap, tap. Cover this baby up. And while we're doing it with this and with the translucent powder through each layer, is that we want to make sure that the color doesn't transfer as much as possible. So now that I'm here, I'm going to take some finishing spray and mist right over top. This helps the powder and the color adheres to the skin. We're going to allow this some drying time, and I'm going to get directly into my cream to powder foundations. And I'm going to use, let's see, I'm going to jump into Ivory 4 and Ivory 5. So here's the thing, before you get started on your tattoo cover-up, you want to make sure that you have color tested the skin to make sure that everything matches beautifully. So here's the thing, we don't really need to match our face to this and apply it to our hands. We need to match our hands to the foundation tone and apply. Does it make sense? Deal, because our hands are usually lighter than our face. So now I'm going to get into, dun, 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 I'm using a sponge. I know, I'm not the biggest fan of sponges, but here's the thing. You'll always catch me with a fresh bag of sponges with me. This way, I can use my sponge and throw it away and use another one that's clean. Let's try not to use sponges several days in a row. As soon as you use it, throw that bad boy away. Deal? That'll keep any extra breakouts, anything of that extra fun stuff. Keep all that away from you. Deal? So I'm going to jump right into the Ivory 5 first. Let's just see how this looks. Good deal. I'm going to go right in and I'm going to start tapping away. This part is going to take a minute. So again, we're going to stipple, stipple, stipple and apply that foundation all over the hand. Now, because she's going to have natural skin surrounding an area with tons of makeup on it, what we're going to need to do is help her blend that out so everything looks natural and like it all belongs. We want to try to do this technique right here with the cream to powder foundation in thin, light layers. This way the makeup doesn't get gunky. We don't want gunky makeup. That's never a good thing. Why are we using cream to powder foundation? Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. We're using cream to powder foundation because liquid shows too much skin. Perfect for beautiful skin on the face, but if you put liquid on your arm or to cover up a tattoo, it's going to show a whole lot of color and you're going to have to do a whole lot of layers and it's just not going to cover the same. Using a cream to powder is almost imitating a fake skin. Now I'm really loading up the translucent powder this time. Really, really loading it up and patting it in. The more I pat it in, the more set it becomes to the skin and the less it's going to move. We don't want the tattoo makeup to move. Now we need to have a common sense talk with our bride or our client as well that day for the tattoo cover up, and we have to be real. So here's the thing. If I as a client came to you and said I wanted my entire arm covered up, completely fine. Realistically though, there's clothes, there's hugging, there's touching, there's brushing up against things. And on top of that, if we could keep the makeup still the whole time, there's nothing we can do to make the skin look like it doesn't have makeup on. It really is an impossible goal because we're doing makeup on skin that is scarred, if you will. So once you've tattooed that skin, it's not normal, clean, clear skin ever, ever again. It will have texture, it will have scarring. So we are trying to minimize the look of that as much as possible. So I'm really going to pat this in, pat it, pat it, pat it, pat it, pat it, pat it, pat it. With minimizing that look, if we have a bride with an area that's that large that she wants to cover, we may want to talk to her about not covering it. Because the worst thing that we could do is give her an area that people are going, oh, yuck, that looks gross. Love your body, love you have, accept it. Be good with it. And don't get tattoos that you want to cover up so much. Just saying. All right, now for the final touch, I'm going to go ahead with just a teeny tiny amount of mineral powder foundation, just to make sure this is nice and the exact tone that I want it. And I think we are almost done. We are getting there. Very, very nice. All right, well, right before we can send our bride out the door, we're going to take a paper towel and gently, gently, gently tap. Once we tap, this should really remove any extra makeup that's not needed and help us get the skin really looking natural. Last but not least, finishing spray. Tons of finishing spray. Allow that to dry, and voila, you have covered up your tattoos. Enjoy, ladies. Have fun.